Hi friends, my name is Chris Dunku. God bless you as we reflect on Jesus feeding the multitude. Jesus feeding the multitude. Many people who read the Bible overlook the fact that there are two feeding narratives in the four Gospels. One was the feeding of the 5,000, and the other was the feeding of the 4,000. And these are all nature miracles. The feeding of the 5,000, Matthew 4:13-24, Mark 6:30-44, Luke 9:10-17, John chapter 6 from verse 1-14. According to Matthew and Mark, Jesus and his disciples withdrew to a lonely place, while only Luke said that the place they withdrew to was Bethsaida. The crowd from various places followed Jesus on foot, and Jesus had compassion on them. Jesus saw them, and they were like sheep without a shepherd. He welcomed them and spoke to them about the kingdom of God as he healed those who needed healing. When it was dark, the disciples said to Jesus, "This is a lonely place, and the day is over. Send the crowd away to buy food for themselves." Jesus answered and said to them, "Provide something for them to eat." The disciples replied, "We have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish." And he said, "Bring them here to me." In Mark, they said, "Can we go and buy 2 denarii worth of bread and give them to eat?" And Jesus said to them, "How many have you got?" And they replied, 5 loaves and 2 fish. He gave thanks and took the bread. He gave them to his disciples to share to the crowd. They ate to their satisfaction, and the leftover filled 12 baskets. According to John, after this, Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias, and a multitude followed him, because they saw the signs which he did on those who were diseased. Jesus went up on the mountain and there sat down with his disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand. Lifting up his eyes then, and seeing that a multitude was coming to him, Jesus said to Philip, "How are we to buy bread so that these people may eat?" This he said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread would not be enough for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are they among so many?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." And there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down, in number about 5,000. Jesus then took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated, so also the fish, as much as they wanted. And when they had eaten their fill, he told his disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten. When the people saw the sign which he had done, they said, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." The feeding of the 4,000. Matthew 15:32-39. Mark 8:1-9. According to Matthew and Mark, Jesus had compassion on the crowd because they had been with him for 3 days and had nothing to eat. Jesus was unwilling to send them away lest they faint on their way. Here, Matthew recorded that the disciples said, "Where are we to get bread enough in the desert to feed the great crowd?" Mark asks that the disciples said, "How can one feed these men with bread here in the desert?" Jesus answered them in both Matthew and Mark, "How many loaves have you?" And they said, 7 loaves and few small fish. Jesus took the 7 loaves and the few small fish, blessed them, and fed the crowd, and the remnant filled 7 baskets, and those who ate were 4,000 men, besides women and children. Differences in the 2 feeding miracles. 1. In the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus used 5 loaves and the 2 fish, while in the 4,000 he used 7 loaves and a few small fish. 2. The 5,000 people were hungry only after midday with Jesus, while the 4,000 had stayed with Jesus for 3 days before they were fed. 3. 12 baskets of broken pieces were left over in the feeding of the 5,000, while 7 baskets were left in the feeding of the 4,000. 4. The feeding of the 5,000 happened in Jewish territory, while the feeding of the 4,000 took place in Gentile territory. The 12 baskets is parallel to 12 tribes of Israel, while 7 baskets left in the feeding of the 4,000 is symbolic of completeness, which is representative of all humanity and not just the Jews. Significant points and lessons. 1. The nature miracles of Jesus show that nature is under his control. 2. Both miracles show the provision of the Lord, his love for all his people, both Jew and Gentile. Jesus will later claim in John chapter 6 verse 35, "I am the bread of life." In these miracles, Jesus feeds them with miraculous bread in preparation for the day when he would have his own body broken like bread upon the cross, offering spiritual and eternal nourishment to all who would come to him. He would offer nourishment and eternal blessings to all who would call upon his name and place their faith and trust in him. Because there is one bread, we who are many are one body, for we all partake of the one bread. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 17. 3. The collection of the remains in 12 and 7 baskets in the feeding of the 5 and the 4,000 respectively show that Jesus did not encourage waste. We should learn not to be wasteful. 4. We should also learn to help those in need like Jesus did. May God grant us the grace to always follow him, who is the bread of life, to always follow him, who will always empower us to do the will of God and be a blessing to our generation. Thank you.